And welcome back to the ATI Podcast. We're at episode 104, which is technically our season 2 in, and no better way to go out, sign off the year than myself, of course. So I'll pat myself on the back real quickly. And my co-host, Brandon Stewart from Edaws End. Brandon's back with me. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing really good. And you know what really would help out with that massage and that pat on the back?
What's that?
Good, healthy dose of cake. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it's still there because it's still underneath my computer. It's still in the exact same secret spot that anytime I need cake, I buy it. And I dip my hand under. I got a dispenser and everything.
For whatever reason, we never really landed that endorsement deal, did we?
We're going to still try.
We're still swinging for the fences.
Yep. We're going to keep on going. We got a few more followers, like 3. So that should be the necessary pull that we need.
I know we've had a lot of activity here in the last few days, too, since your new episode dropped. You had Evan. Is it Hugh or Ho, the last name?
You know, I only went by I knew his name was Evan because it's what Evan. But I didn't ask him how to pronounce his last name.
Well, Evan, in case you're a Ho, it's Evan Ho.
Evan Ho. Evan Ho, that's what it is.
But yeah, man, good conversation, guys, for sure.
Great. It was great. He's a good dude. He did try to accost me after the episode, which was a little strange.
Virtually?
Yeah. He kept on making the wiggly. If you're watching on video. It was tempting. Great, and got a good response from it. Got a lot of new people that are interested in the show. Means more people tuning in. February, we're supposed to have White Tiger in, and then
toward the end of your last episode, because I produce it, I put in who his next 2 guests would be, and put examples of their work up as well, so everybody will get an idea of that. And then if this is the first time you're watching us, or first time you're catching us mentioning Brandon's show, of course, that's Knob Nard's Closet, that dives into mini painting, D&D, 40K Warhammer, role-playing games, tabletop, just kind of everything under that umbrella. But he's kind of more exploring and conversating with people that are in the creative realm. So, people that are painting, making their modifications to figures and things like that, kind of taking a very, I would say, it's an artistic endeavor, but certainly making it even more artistic and creative with the personalized spins that a lot of you and your guests are taking.
The one thing I did want to add, I know I have White Tiger February 24th, Howling Mad the 8th. That's going to be a night show. And then Apocrypha Now on the 23rd of March. So it'll be the first time that I do 2 shows in 1 month. I really wanted to get him in because Howling Mad's a really good buddy of mine, and Apocrypha Now is another individual from Great Britain that I wanted to talk to for a while. Makes a lot of good games, puts a lot of good content out there.
This is another thing we were kind of talking about off air, though, but you've kind of started to hit a stride here in the last few episodes as well, I think. That's going to translate across to other people that maybe even just have a remote or vague or fringe interest in this stuff. I mean, it's stuff that I'm not even into, but I appreciate the artistic aspects of it and the creativity, and I find myself fascinated with all the guests that you have, and it's increasingly more and more fascinating.
Yeah, man, it's been a great run so far. That was episode 7. I hope to eventually reach 10 at some point, but we'll see what happens. I just won't talk about homeless people anymore. I made a couple of jokes. Didn't went very well. I obviously have all the respect on the planet for homeless people. I wish they could be rehomed. Not that guy.
Yeah. If anybody hasn't caught on by now, and again, back to our comments earlier, if this is the first time you ever watched, Brandon and I like to make jokes about things that people shouldn't make jokes about. So that's just our brand of humor. And, that's just kind of what you get. That's the price of admission here. So it's going to happen from time to time. We don't hate any one specific group of people. We hate everybody. So,
well, Nazis.
Well, that's true. Definitely Nazis. Definitely Nazis. Yeah. So we're just going to go over what the agenda is for the show today here. Of course, the main topic of our conversation today is going to be our favorite TV shows of 2023, doing another one of our year-ender listing episodes that we like to cap off our seasons with. Of course, we've done our favorite albums already. We've done our favorite movies. Brandon was in part involved with the albums one and then fully involved with the movies episode that's out right now too that we had Ian Fisher on for. So you guys definitely want to check that out if you guys are interested in maybe catching some obscure movies. We get in the weeds with that. But today we're going to be talking about some TV shows and some TV series. So this is going to be whether it's on broadcasting or the streaming platforms. We've got quite the eclectic group of choices, even though there's a little bit of crossover. So we're just going to start things off kind of like we did with our movie episode, that is. We're just going to talk about our honorable mention. I know, Brandon, you got at least one, if not two, so I'll let you go ahead and go first. What is an honorable mention for you in 2023 on TV series?
So I got actually 3, and I kind of feel bad about this because I feel like for 2 of these were really competing for that top 5, but they just didn't make it because of the other stuff I had seen. But the big things for me were Silo. It's a brand new sci-fi out there. People live in silos underneath the ground, do not understand why, and don't question why they don't go above ground. They've just been told it's poisonous above ground, and I won't give you more than that. Love and Death, another fantastic series. Everybody involved, I love. I think Olsen,
Elizabeth Olsen
and Jesse Plemons. I think they're both excellent actors and actresses. Like, I think, honestly, for me, as long as she's not trying to do a Russian or Eastern European accent, she's, like, perfect in everything she's in. Even the Old Boy remake, which was dog shit.
Right.
She's great in. So
Marcy May Marlene, she was great in that.
Yep. Yeah. I think she's just a fantastic actress, and hopefully she gets better opportunities out there with her agent and other people looking. And Jesse Plemons is like...
He's on the rise, man.
He's my weird hot dad fetish, and he's not attractive. Like, I want to say daddy whenever I see him. Like, I want to hold him and be like, Daddy Plemons. He actually looks scary in the new Civil War movie.
Yeah, definitely.
He looks terrifying, which is going to be another thing of why we hate our world and make us feel good inside.
It might be prophetic, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And the last one I was turned on to by people in the office because I work in a law office, and this was all about court. It was called Jury Duty. Essentially, if you haven't seen it, it's free to watch, whatever. But it's got James Marsden in it and people from Parks and Rec. It's crazy. It's actually kind of crazy. All these actors know that this case is like a fake trial, and there's one person that they selected to be in this jury to go along with the shenanigans, and he doesn't know to the very end that it's fake. It is hilarious and uncomfortable to watch.
That sounds awesome, actually.
It is fucking hilarious. It's so good. That might be one of the best comedies of the year to me, because it was fucking funny. And this guy has seen Parks and Rec and doesn't recognize one of the Parks and Rec guys. And then James Marsden. Oh, no, you got to watch it. But yeah, those are my top 3.
I saw that James Marsden actually got, I believe, an Emmy nomination for that role, and I didn't even hear anything about that show until I saw that he was announced as a nominee. So I didn't search it any further. So I'm glad to hear that it's worthwhile. I might check that out for sure.
Is a complete piece of shit in the show, making this guy who knows James Marsden. He's like, I love your acting, whatever. And the guy by the end of it, it's not the same feeling that he had before. We'll see.
Yeah. Fargo didn't make my top 5. It just had its finale. But John Hamm is transcendent in playing the character that he is, kind of like an alt-right neocon, fringe, militia type, the kinds that you see on the news here in the last 5 years or so, pretty frequently. Just kind of a characterization of that. I think he's the best performance in that, although there is other noteworthy performances in that, but to me, he takes the cake. I really like Jennifer Jason Leigh in it as well. She's one of my all-time favorite actresses, but I feel like she's in it not enough. I could have a little bit more of her in that show. And then Loki. Loki really won me over this year. I mean, I liked the first season, but this second season had a lot more heart to me. I think Brandon and I have had this discussion that Loki is arguably the best MCU character because of his story arc. You can even make the argument that he's the best villain, but he's also the best anti-hero. Things that have happened in the MCU realm. So we're talking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is arguably the best character. And to see the journey of his character, and it's not been there's not been like holes in the psychology of his evolution as a character either. It's been a slow
Right.
burn, and throughout all of the stuff that he's been in, you can see the clear trajectory from A to Z and how he ultimately ended up. It's got a very powerful ending, and Vincent and Moorhead are involved in a lot of the season 2 of Loki as well, which I'm a huge fan of them.
Most original story by Marvel, I think.
And they've orchestrated a way to get themselves out of the Jonathan Majors conundrum as well with this, whether that was intentional or not while they were filming it. If anything, Marvel should be going, Kevin Feige should be going and kissing these guys' asses because he served it up on a platter for him. But my long form one is Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I really love Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I was a huge fan of Scott Pilgrim, the movie. Brandon and I, while you were home on Thanksgiving break, we got into a deep discussion in the kitchen over a long period of time about how much I love Scott Pilgrim, Edgar Wright's movie, and was making the argument that might be his best movie. And I am a huge fan. All the same people are back involved with this. Edgar Wright's executive producing it. They hired a lot of Japanese anime folks in that department, so they get the anime part of it right. Scott Pilgrim started out as an anime comic book, so that's what the adaptation of the original film in 2010 was from. They go back to a lot of the wellhouse with the music and stuff in this as well. It's a lot, even I would argue it's even more so focused around the music, because every episode there's something like going on musically, so that thread is carried throughout the show as well. The animation's great. A lot of sci-fi elements are great. There's a lot of, campy comedy moments that are great. I love that they kind of just blow up the original story in some respects, so that you don't know what's coming, because like people like Brandon and I have read the anime or seen the original movie back in 2010 would have went into this probably thinking we knew it was going to happen, but it just totally turns the narrative upside down. It's an entirely different story. Like I said, they got the original voice cast back. I just can't sing the praises of this enough. The other one cool thing I wanted to mention as well, so they use metric in the original movie. They use a metric song, Black Sheep, right before it got big, and they bring it back. They bring metric back to actually do the song for Brie Larson's character in this movie, and they're actually singing it this time, where she's not singing like a cover of them playing the music
That's
track.
awesome.
So that's kind of a really cool like nuance thing that's been added to this too. So, and I'm a big fan of metric as well. So yeah, I can't recommend the new Scott Pilgrim Takes Off anime. I think that's streaming on Netflix if you guys want to check it out. So it is very attainable, very watchable. I think all the episodes are like 20 minutes long, and there's like 10 episodes, so you can knock it out easily if you want to do a little binge watch for sure. So I think we're going to go ahead and move into our 4s and 5s. We'll start off with our 5s on our list. Brandon, what do you got at number 5 for your favorite TV series this year?
The 5th spot is going to be Swarm. Whenever I'd seen previews for this, it really got my attention. The previews were fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Bothersome. And I like Donald Glover and what he has to provide, especially from Atlanta to his music. He's got like a dark sense of humor from Bonfire. I mean, any of his older music especially was very breaking the fourth wall or the fourth dimension, really talking about things that were happening in his childhood. He was a nerdy kid. He's kind of a visionary mind, I think, in a lot of aspects. And to see him do a horror, and then the whole thing is social commentary.
Yep.
It kind of throws some jabs at Beyonce and throws some jabs at Fame. I really liked the shots in that. The cinematography was great.
Yeah.
The weirdness of the characters were fantastic. It really made me feel uncomfortable, and this is something that me and Liz would look forward to every single day to watch. It was just a blast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Swarm myself. Pam and I watched it as well, and we're huge Donald Glover fans too. I loved him in Community. I've loved his stand-up, love Childish Gambino's music. So, it's all stellar. The guy can do no wrong, in my opinion. What you had mentioned as far as the social commentary and stuff on Fame in particular, I thought was really fascinating. It was a uniquely Black story as well. So I always enjoy seeing things from that perspective myself. I believe that was exclusively a Prime series, if I remember correctly. And it's one of those that kind of came out right at the first of the year. So so much shit has come out since then.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like, other stuff kind of piled on top of that, but it's definitely in my top 10. I'd say it's probably it would have been number 9 for me. So just kind of right behind some of the other ones we mentioned earlier. But it's really good. That doesn't mean that it's bad by any means, for sure.
No, and I think it's about preference. Like we talked about movies, the movie segment. It's just one of those things. I think it did have it in the first of the year, and it was one of those things that, looking back at the TV shows I'd seen, it popped into my head. I was like, I think I'm going to remember this one for a little bit. because I could see him collaborating with others in the horror community, or even I see some similarities in certain things that he was going for. Maybe didn't achieve as well as Jordan Peele, but getting into that black horror is, I love it.
So I'm going to fly in with my number 5, and this, to me, in my opinion, was the funniest series all year, probably. And that is The White House Plumbers. Now, The White House Plumbers got a little hate, which I think is bullshit, by a lot of like writers and stuff trying to, I guess, damn it for being a lighthearted comedic take on what took place during the Watergate scandal. Yes, this is a story about the Watergate scandal. It's about the saboteurs that were hired by Nixon, that being Howard Hunt and Gordon Liddy, to head up a team to basically defame and steal information on Democratic candidates and rivals for political gain, obviously, and exploit them. How stupid these people were about how they went about things is where the comedy lies. Like, the comedy lies in the truth. Like, this is fact.
Yeah.
This is fact. So anybody taking offense to that is a fucking idiot, number one. And they can't see how darkly comedic and humorous this is. And even like just the interplay between Howard Hunt and his family alone is also hilarious. So this is headed by two of my favorite actors, so Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux. Justin Theroux, to me, is one of the best comedic actors there is, period. Every time he's had a comedic role, he's fucking hit a grand slam, regardless of what it has been. You know? He's just incredible in his comedic timing. He's got a deadpan delivery in this. He plays like a straight-laced character that's like over the top. Like at one point he just like randomly pulls out a gun at the most inappropriate time at like a family dinner party, and everybody's like, what the fuck, man? You know, he's a complete nut job, and he talks about like killing people. He's like, oh, should we kill her? Like, he's serious. And shit, you know. So it's just hilarious to me to see this characterized. There's a lot of faces that you'll recognize. There's a guy who's like through all of American Horror Story through various characters in it. He's pretty funny. I can't recall his name. Chick from Game of Thrones, Cersei Lannister. She's in it. She plays the wife. Yeah, she plays the wife of Woody Harrelson's character, and she's great in her role. She's just as strong of a character as anybody else. And just some of the bizarre things that happen too. So like Howard Hunt, the character that Woody Harrelson plays, his wife actually died in a plane crash like while all the shit was hitting the fan, and he was going to court trials and shit. And so like left like some of his younger kids that like weren't of age to be like taking care of themselves, like stranded without a parent, because motherfucker went to some, you know, serve some time. You know, so it's a one-off season thing. It's hilarious. It's done by the people that did Veep, so you know it's gonna be funny as well. And so yeah, man, I got a lot of love for this series. I think it's got a lot of rewatchability, and like the dark comedy is. I think this is probably the singular series I laughed at the most this year for sure.
The two funny moments that I can think of from that series, the thing that happens in the show is that Woody Harrelson's character asks Justin Theroux to get them disguises.
Yes,
and the disguises are these fucking over the top. You can tell with their wigs and sunglasses, they look like
they're supposed to be tourists. Yeah,
they're trying to play this liberal, how they perceive liberals.
Right,
and it is fucking hilarious.
It's a character of a character. Like, it's so overboard. Yeah,
and then the other really dark comedy portion of it is literally whenever they're sitting at dinner one night, Lena Headey, Woody Harrelson, Justin Theroux, and his wife, and all of a sudden he throws on one of Hitler's speeches in the background.
Yes.
On record. And there's a certain portion where Justin Theroux, I forget why he has to leave, but he hears something down the street and has to go investigate. You see in the window behind while they're talking, he jumps down from the house, falls in the bushes, and starts chasing after people with a gun.
Yes.
He's very much white supremacist, but it is very hilarious.
As outwardly he is one, he's also kind of closeted, because like when he's confronted about it, like I think Howard even asked him, like Woody Harrelson at one point, it's like, are you a Nazi? He was like, no, but there's nothing wrong with clean bloodlines, and my wife is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pure, genuine genetic specimen.
Yeah, it's almost like he doesn't realize truly what a Nazi is.
Right, exactly.
He doesn't like the word Nazi, so he's like going around he's like that hidden Nazi that he doesn't even realize that he is.
Right.
But God, anytime there's a chance of making fun of a fucking Nazi, especially on this podcast, like we don't hold back punches, bro. So that is fucking hilarious, and he got his in the end.
So I think we're ready for the stage at which we're going to talk about our number 4s.
This was the one that happened at the very beginning of the year that I completely, I remember I fucking loved this show. It was by far the funniest show that I had seen in a little bit, at least a little while since I had. Ted Lasso's not really funny. It's heartfelt and also dark comedically. Beef. I love Beef. Ali Wong. Justin, or you. His last name is you, right?
Steven.
Young. Both of them are fantastic. Ali Wong, I'll talk about her later. She's fantastic. And I'm not normally a huge fan of her stand-up or anything like that, but she has some really good chops whenever it comes to acting. She can bounce in and out of pissed off to sarcastic, making fun of people, very serious, dramatic moments. This is another thing about class and also primarily Asian
culture and stereotypes and things. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's even, I forget the motherfucker's name too, but this criminal uncle of Yoon is an artist, and he's done some wild shit before. He used to be friends with Anthony Bourdain and do his show sometimes. David Cho.
Yeah, I was going to say Cho's his name.
Yeah, man, I love this show. It's definitely speaks on class. I think anytime you bring up class talks, I'm always going to be there for it, especially if they have an original take on it. It's just that I didn't remember a lot of it from the very beginning of the year.
I do have it on my list as well. It's higher up, so I'll talk about my points of view on it later. So I am going to talk about what I have at my number 4, which I believe might be on your list as well, Brandon. That's The Last of Us. It is rare to have a series, particularly a game series, that delivers. And the minute that they announced this and who the cast was, being led by Pedro Pascal.
Bella Ramsey.
Yeah, she plays the female lead in this as well. But, I played the Last of Us games. Brandon, I know you played the Last of Us games too. Loved the games. It was an amazing story. You could always see it being cinematic because a lot of those cut scenes and stuff were cinematic. It was a fresh wrinkle on the zombie lore, especially approaching it from the sense this is a fungus that's infecting people, and we got it through yeast and that sort of thing seemed very real and tangible the way that they approached it. And the fact that they also early on, you knew that the people that did Chernobyl, that series, were doing this, which I love Chernobyl. That's one of my all-time favorite shows, man.
Yeah.
It's excellent. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of similarities other than maybe it's the bleakness. Even if you didn't play the games, you can watch this and enjoy it on its standalone. I like that this series also explores some backstory that you don't get so much with the games, and for the sake of, fitting things into season and making things move, and everything's just a 1-hour show, and I think it's 8 episodes overall for this first season. They really couldn't tell the whole first game in the weeds in one season with that time limit, I feel like, to address all the wrinkles, but they kind of picked and choose their spots, and the majority milestone and marker points with the storylines are there, and they're dead on. There's video out there too, you can see side by side of the game story. You can see The Last of Us Remastered laid in next to what they did with the show, and even down to the movements and some of the kill sequences and everything are just dead on. And it's incredible. They're able to translate the power of that storytelling to the screen and not lose any of that as well. So my hat's off to them, just the accuracy of the adaptation. And of course, the performances are just stellar across the board too. So I've got Last of Us at number 4 on my list. Speaking of which, talking about our favorite performances of the year, let's break up the list talk and let's talk about our female performances of the year.
I think for me, it's definitely going to be Ali Wong neck and neck with Bella Ramsey. I think big one was Ali Wong. Bella Ramsey's right there, but she probably hit a little bit number 2. Bella Ramsey, she's a kid. I mean, she's younger, at least. She's young in her 20s, and her depth on this, going from something like Game of Thrones and being able to have such a voice, especially as Ellie, which is Last of Us is very near and dear to my heart. Played both of them countless times. I can't even tell you. First game probably 20 times, and then second game probably 10 so far, but I still have it on my PlayStation. She really led down. I was really worried because I thought I knew the actress that should play Ellie, which is the girl that played in that almost dialogueless alien invasion movie that we talked about on the last.
Yeah, no one will save you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to be Ellie easily. I mean, she's like spitting image of her.
She's got the look.
But Ali Wong, man, like I said before, dude, I don't think there's much other explanation. She really fucking, for a person I didn't really enjoy before, whenever I saw her in her, man, she is just, you go from fucking hating her to thinking she's clever as fuck to really hating her to thinking like maybe she's going to come out on top of this. I mean, both characters don't have any redeeming qualities about themselves, but she just knocks it out of the fucking park. And she's funny as fuck, which I didn't normally think. Yeah, she really killed it for me this year, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. She definitely, for the record, she probably would have been a runner-up for me. But I basically the same opinions. I really wasn't much of a fan of her. I never really watched anything she was in. Never really cared about her stand up. I've seen some of her bits, passerby. It just wasn't for me. Not to say it was bad. It just didn't. It's not my brand of humor. The fact that she has been a longtime partner of Bill Hader, I felt like there probably had to be something there just because I'm such a big Bill Hader fan. So I did never completely write her off. But when I saw a lot of the, the trailers and stuff and the fact that the Beef was the first A24 sponsored series as well, I thought, well, I should give her a chance, right? And so we did. And I'm a big Stephen Young fan. I even enjoyed him all the way back on Walking Dead. And he's really started to make a name for himself in the, in cinema in general. He's had a lot of great roles already, notable roles. He's being sought after as an actor, and this is only adding to that resume of his. I would say that maybe my favorite overall performance in the entire series is from him, but she's right there neck and neck with him. The character that she plays, basically a midlife crisis woman, she depicts it perfectly. And that scale of emotions that Brandon talked about, it's definitely on display, so I'm not going to balk at that pick for sure. My female performance of the year, you mentioned the series earlier, Brandon, Love and Death, and that is Elizabeth Olsen. A lot of nuance with her character. She starts off as this goody two-shoes, churchy woman, beloved by the community, homeroom mom, runs these sponsors for building new gymnasiums at the church. She's so involved with the community. I think she's kind of short of the pastor's wife herself, she's the most revered woman in the entire church. People go to her, seek her advice. She's very crafty. She's a really fantastic homemaker in her own right. And she's just a revered person in the community. And to kind of see what happened with her circumstantially, I mean, I was always kind of aware of the story because this is based on a true story of a woman in Texas who had an affair with somebody in the church, and the murder was allegedly covered up. And, you always see the news stories, but there's no human element behind it. You're just seeing what's being reported to you and that sort of thing. I can easily see how this was something that happened. And again, it's a TV series, of course, but this is something that circumstantially happened that, was no intent of anybody killing anybody, and, things happened in self-defense and that sort of thing. And it sucks that this woman's life was ruined. Her marriage was ruined. Everybody peripherally around her was ruined over a short little fling that she had with somebody that, died out. So if the intent was to sell that point, they sold that point in spades, and they could have had no better actress in that role.
She sold it.
And again, that dynamic of her character and that storytelling that she does just with her acting, so you see that change in her character, and that guilt that lays on her, whether that's with her, her cheating on her husband initially, or even, after the murder takes place, how she's trying to put on a front, and then just, she tries to almost give up, and then she starts on benzos and stuff, and just how her physical demeanor has changed and her state of mind. It's just, Elizabeth Olsen is taking you on a ride. So it's just hard for me to pick anybody else other than her based on what I saw this year in Love and Death. And Love and Death was a solid series as well. There was just a lot of great series this year. It just didn't make my top 5.
Can't agree more, man. She's fantastic.
So we're going to get back into the list, and we're going to talk about our 3s and 2s. So Brandon, what do you got at number 3?
The Last of Us has been, I've always loved Naughty Dog, which, the Drake games, the Uncharted games. Always loved those. I love the filmatic quality of them. There's never been a better video game adaptation to date than this. And it's not a direct adaptation, which is fine with me. I'm over zombies almost entirely until this was on the map. The reason why this is different, the reason why the comic book of Walking Dead were different from the zombie take, back whenever it was just the comic book and not the TV show, because I don't want to talk about the TV show. The difference is that Walking Dead was about people's interactions during a zombie apocalypse.
Right.
With this, it is a man. You can take the zombies away and just leave they're just an added plus to it. Like they're an additional thing to be horrified about. This is humans reacting to a catastrophe that has taken place. A man who's been robbed of his whole life, which is his daughter, and now given a second chance with a new
surrogate daughter.
Yeah, perceived. Where he's going with it is daughter. This was a game that I played. I was separated from my wife whenever she was giving birth to my son. Whenever I was in Alabama, because I had just left Italy to go to training, and I was in quarantine for 14 days. Start to finish, I beat that game. I would wake up every single day, play it, go grab some groceries, get back, pick it up again, and continue playing. I don't think there's ever a game that I've cried in, ever, and I bawled my eyes out every step of the way, especially with the second one. The first one was pretty rough too, but a lot of people don't like the second game. To that, I say, go fuck yourself. It's always like, and I'll briefly say this, it's always like those fanboys that are always like, well, this is nothing like the way it should be, and it should be black. I'm like, bro, this is their art. If you don't appreciate their art, then don't watch it.
Right.
This is the way that they wanted to put their art out there. And regardless of what you think, you should make something else. Don't bring everybody else fucking down because you didn't enjoy something. The message is very, very dark in the second one, which I'm looking forward to see their part 2. But to get back to the TV series, it lends itself that very bleak recovery from losing something so strong that you love so much to having to accept now that even though you're a changed person, you can find love in somebody else. And there's some choices that are made by Joel and Ellie both that are detrimental to the entire series that will happen later. But this is one of those shows that I'm okay with them not hitting the same like huge or several plot points that happened in the game, is because they made it entertaining regardless. You believe all of these things are happening around you, and with performances like our 2 leads, I don't think that you can go wrong. I mean, it's a gorgeous representation of what the game was trying to say. They worked closely with the game developers to come up with a story they would be okay with.
Right.
At the same time, they brought on
a lot of voice actors and actual roles.
They brought on voice actors, and they brought on the same character actors that all the clickers were, the same movement creation people, the same contortionists from the game onto the show. It's just, people have their doubts about this. And I was like, nope, I'm in. I'm in no matter what. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about this. There's no way they could fuck this up. If they do, then I lose hope in humanity as a whole. And let's not forget, one of the greatest episodes of all history, in my opinion, especially of our time, Nick Offerman's episode with his husband.
Yep. I agree 100%.
That was one of the most... Last of Us, you got me on the game, but you fucking doubly got me on the fucking TV show. I was bawling my eyes out during that fucking third episode.
That was incredible.
That fucking hit me hard. And if there's anything those games know, man, it is where to get you in the feels, and I'm here for it. I want to cry. I want to be angry. I want to be sad, like happy. Like, whew, it was riveting, and the only way they could do it is put in this set of episodes. So nothing they did wrong. I don't care what anybody says. This show was flawless. I'm here for it.
Yeah, the only other thing I didn't dive into deeper, because I definitely knew that you had it just slightly higher on your list, was the fact of, the Nick Offerman relationship. In that episode, I feel like is the best episode, even though they're not characters that are in every episode. You basically get the backstory from a game that you played that you didn't have the full backstory, but there was like allusions to theories about who they were and what happened with them. They actually explore that story and how the relationship developed. And it's basically a queer love story. And so it's really cool to see that actually in cinema and done well and tastefully as well. And I mean, one of the actors is, I think, queer, but Nick Offerman isn't. And he displays it with like such grace and poise. And I think he even got an Emmy for his performance, I think. Like a limited performance here recently. So yeah, so that should tell you everything that you need to know. If it wasn't an Emmy, it was a Critics' Choice Award.
And I know I played the game, and you guys are gonna heckle me. I've told you I've played the first one 20 times, but it's been a little bit, and I mean it. I played it 20 times, but I believe his name is Bill in that series, and if I am correct in this, he did play a Bill in the actual game, which was Crazy Bill that had all the contraptions and explosions and shit like that. And he was kind of the crazy guy in the game that had all these traps set up around his property, and you have to get past his traps to go talk to Bill. And he's going through all these psychological things. He's like a doomsday prepper himself.
Right.
So they brought in certain things that they needed to bring in, and they hit them hard. And they got that human experience in there, and they fucking nailed it.
What's different, what sets these guys apart, what sets Walking Dead apart was the monsters are just a platform to tell the story of humanity and the crazy things that we will do, the horrific things that we'll do, the horrific decisions that we'll make against each other whenever these are times that we should band together. And that's what the theme of these types of shows are. That's why it makes them even more realistic is, and we've seen things like this, like with the COVID scares. People became more divisive rather than rallying together when we should have rallied together. So my number 3 is going to be Barry. I mentioned Bill Hader earlier. This last season of Barry came out this year. They could not have ended the series any better. Bill Hader has been just on a tear with this show as it is anyways. He primarily writes it, directs some of the episodes. He's the showrunner, him and his writing partner. Just every episode left you on the edge of your seat this season. The season picked up, there's a bit of a time jump. You learn that he's a father and he settled down with a relationship under a new alias with his acting girlfriend. And they're in what seems to be a pretty desolate town. And their son's homeschooled and they're trying to protect him from the public. And she's got like a dining job. And so they're like not real connected with the community. And all of a sudden he's oddly like very religious. And he's trying to raise his son as such. And he's using a lot of satanic panic type methods in raising him, and the kid's just like super, just like a good kid. And the wife has slid into alcoholism and obviously hates herself, hates her life, hates the way that things have played out for them. I mean, that happens, I guess this time jump happens later on in the season, I should say. After some imprisonment and just like a wild shenanigans, Barry breaks out of prison. I mean, there's just as ridiculous as if I was here to tell you and hit the bullet points of what happens in the season. It sounds like so far-fetched that it couldn't have happened. But if you watch this series from start to finish, you can see how something like this could actually happen in real life. Like, this is all very actually realistic, but darkly comedic at the same time. In this season, there's little to no comedy in comparison to the other seasons. This is bleak as hell. And, the whole time, especially when you first start watching it, I'm like a guy that's always like thinking, how are they ever going to like end this? Like, where's this going to go eventually? Like, what is the end game? It starts off a little bit more comedic, but all of this has to do basically with a veteran from the Iraq War or Afghanistan War. I can't remember which. I want to say Iraq. A part of that conflict. And he's got like insane PTSD. And again, you can see like how this could be a very realistic story. I think Bill Hader does a great job of telling that story and what a person would be going through in those situations. But furthermore, pushing that, to present day, how people just don't get over those things. Like, so there's some great depictions of that. So that adds to the realism of what's being told, although this kind of starts as a comedic story. Henry Winkler has been the MVP acting-wise of this entire series, in my opinion. He's won awards early on. He was great in this last season as well. It's a really incredible show. It's great writing, not too far-fetched. NoHo Hank is probably my favorite overall character on the show. I would have liked to see a different ending for him. I was really rooting for him, but,
Yeah, and Anthony Carrigan, I don't think he was supposed to have that role, right? He was supposed to be
right.
Like, he just kind of stumbled into that role. To see his progression from goofy mob boss from that Eastern European, one of those countries, Czech Republic or something.
No, they were Czech, I think. Yeah, because they kept thinking that they were Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go, his progress throughout that, dude, he's funny in the first 2 episodes. First two
seasons. Yeah. That last season.
That end season is rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it is balls to the wall, fucking let's go into depression mode.
Yeah.
It is. Life catches up to all these people.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, all these characters have finally kind of hit the end of their rope, have lucked into many chances in getting away with things. And because they've hit the end of their rope, like, the most crazy shit takes place. I've loved Barry from the start. It's been probably in my top 3, shows every year that it's had a season. I'm really excited to see what Bill Hader does next because, to me, another guy that can do no wrong. I really hope he has creative reign to do whatever the hell he wants on his next project as well because I'm really excited to see how it shakes out.
Go from SNL
Right.
to indie comedies to indie dramas to Barry.
Right.
Barry's done nothing wrong from start to end, and the only reason why I didn't put it on my list, and I'm going to be kind of a hypocrite coming up on our list coming up soon, but the series had already started is the reason why I didn't put it on my list. I love that last season. I mean, I don't think they could have done anything different.
My number 2 is a show that you already named, and we've already talked about somewhat extensively, so I'll just go ahead and name that. And I know your number 2, I think, is my number 1, so we'll kind of push that all together. So real quickly, my 2 is Beef, so I really did enjoy Beef as well. We kind of mentioned the reasons why we liked it. The only thing I want to add to this is just kind of what the synopsis of the show is, and it essentially starts out with like a road rage incident. It's kind of what accelerates all of this. And these 2 lives of these Asian people that I believe live on the West Coast start to cross over with one another because they're like at a home supply store. And you don't really understand why. Like, that Stephen Yeun's character is like really quirky. And for whatever reason, he keeps buying these barbecue pits, like little travel barbecue pits, and putting them in his house and then taking them back. And the cashier even makes a comment to him like, you return these like 6 times a week. Like, what is it? Oh, they just don't work. I don't need them. It's like giving these bullshit excuses as to why. I think they won't take one of them back because the box damaged or something like that. He gets out in the car, so he's like hastily about to leave, and Ali Wong's character is just like cuts him off. And so this is where the road rage incident kind of ensues because he's like kind of already at the end of his rope. And later you find out that he's actually like suicidal and his life's not on the best path, and that's the reason he keeps buying these barbecue pits because he keeps like considering killing himself. But he's also like trying to raise money for his family, who's been fucked out of it and had to go back to South Korea, and he's also supporting his brother, and he's got like a dead-end construction business, and he tries to work hard, but he's kind of like a little too pushy and like off-puts people, and he's also made some like bad choices in like getting involved with his cousin Cho that we mentioned earlier, and I think these brothers are called the Cho brothers. They have their own business, right? He's a character that always gets in his own way. And I feel like there's like a lot of relatability. That's why I like the show as well, because I think we all can like name people in our lives that are kind of like that character, Their intentions are good, but they'll make risky decisions because their ambitions get in the way. And so then they start making poor life choices and decisions, right? Because they think that they're going to cut corners to get ahead in life. And that's really what he is the embodiment of. Amy's character, she's midlife crisis, and she depicts that perfectly, and she's at the end of her rope in that regard as well. In a fractured marriage, she married wealthy, so she feels somewhat, hamstringed, even though she herself has built a successful business that she's about to sell, and a lot of the season's taken up with her trying to sell this business to a more wealthy investor. That's basically the premise of the show, but like these lives keep crossing over one another. They keep doing stuff vindictively back to each other to try and get it over on the other one. I mean, it's a crazy story, but again, you can see, especially like with wealthy people, that this could be a reality, right?
I'm not to talk shit about suicide, but you would think that the number one tool for suicide wouldn't be a grill from a hardware store. I just feel like that wouldn't be
no, but that's kind of just habitually like what his character is. He's like a habitual fuck up, so he doesn't do anything right. He can't even kill himself right. That's kind of I think what the story that they're telling with that. So it's not so much about like choosing the right device. It's actually more about choosing the wrong device to do it.
Which is weirdly comedic in its own.
It definitely is. It definitely is. It's very darkly comedic. So I really enjoyed Beef. We mentioned earlier AT4's first series. I don't know if they're going to continue to do series. I don't feel like I've read too much about that. Wildly successful, critically acclaimed. I know a lot of people were buzzing about it, but it happened so early in the year. I feel like they've kind of suffered kind of that thing that happens. Like if you put out something too early in the year, it doesn't get the same critical acclaim when it becomes like award season at the end of the year. Let's talk about our male performances of the year real quickly. What do you have as your male performance of the year, Brandon?
For me,
Jeremy Allen White. Yep.
I think that dude, coming from where he did, he was on that William H. Macy's show,
Shameless,
and blossoming into doing the Iron Claw and doing the Bear, where he's a phenomenal actor, dealing with all this different shit all at once. I think he's my runner-up. First of all, he's gorgeous. I'd fucking bang. But he's a fucking badass, man. Like, you you see all the PTSD that this guy's been through.
Definitely.
And all the things that fuck with him during this time. And if you know anything about Matty Matheson, who wrote the show, or who's a contributor, at least I believe he wrote the show.
Executive producer, does give some input on the story, gives input on like the cooking and stuff like that, and then he's also an actor in it.
Matty Matheson is one of the coolest motherfuckers out there.
I agree.
I brought up to Barrett that he reminds us of our friend Cato, the late great Gatsby. I brought him up to Barrett a couple times throughout. Wait a second, I'm talking about Jeremy Allen White. Anyways, Jeremy Allen White, tearing it up. I'm going on a tangent. But, I would love 1 second to see this actor, fail in my eyes just because I feel like he's so well beloved. And maybe that's just the teenager in me that I'm like, I don't want to necessarily like this guy as much as I do, weirdly. But I'm Pedro Pascal. I don't know what it is about him. But there's nothing he's done that I've hated ever. I think that he's just such a spotlight on him that I feel like that's a lot of pressure. Maybe I should put it like that. I think the guy's phenomenal in anything that he does. And he plays a pretty straight role in this. He's behind a mask and you believe him for the entire show and fucking, what's it called? For me, he's a treasure. I've loved him in everything that he's done. I didn't watch The Kingsman 2 because, it's The Kingsman 2 and the first one was way better, obviously. But man, he puts on a performance and you see all the pain in his eyes and you see what's happened to him throughout his, this stint of the apocalypse happening. And I there's nobody more believable to me that could have played this role. And a perfect person for Joel in general. Like I said, I don't think anybody else could have played this role. Period.
He was not a guy that was on my radar whenever they were casting it. You try to fan cast stuff when you hear things going in production. He was definitely not the guy that I would have picked, but it's hard to see anybody else now because he did such a phenomenal job with the role. And even when they announced him, this is exciting. He hasn't, like Brandon said, he hasn't missed on any of his performance. Even if he's in a bad movie, he's knocks it out of the park. Whatever role, the Wonder Woman 1984 dog shit movie, but he kills it in that as the bad guy. He's great.
Yeah, I think that. And I want to correct myself a little bit. I don't want to hate him. I just feel like that this guy can do no wrong. I'm just worried maybe that
there might be a skeleton in the closet or something.
Yeah, I'm just so scared. I don't want to, because I feel like all my heroes seem to end up either dead or fucking sexual assaulters or whatever, which is probably a bad choice on my behalf, and it makes me question my own mortality. But but I will say, he's my favorite actor of the year. He killed it as Joel. He is like what Barrett said. Whenever he was announced, I was like, okay, I'm in. I don't know if that's necessarily who I would have picked. He doesn't look like Joel. As soon as episode 1 starts, I'm like, that's fucking Joel. Yeah. That's Joel, 100%. And I'm like, holy fuck. He's doing this. Fantastic.
Yeah, so both of the actors that you name, I could have easily made my actor of the year as well, and they're certainly in that runner-up discussion, right behind this gentleman, in my opinion. And that is Eben Moss Backrack, and that is cousin from The Bear. And he, this season of The Bear, and we'll transition into that conversation as well here momentarily. When The Bear started, I absolutely hated this guy. I was like, I know people like this. This guy's a piece of shit. He's a hanger-on. He's refusing to change. He's a thorn in the side. He's dead weight. There's no hope. Just all those things immediately were running through my mind in the first few episodes. One of the things that started to turn me around on him, although this was a giant fuck-up on his part, was him dropping all of his fucking Xanax into the Kool-Aid at Uncle's party for his kids, and the kids get all drunk and pass out. And I thought the whole time, man, the worst thing was going to happen. This is going to be terrible. All these kids are fucking on Xanax, passed out in the yard. And whenever Oliver Platt, who plays the uncle, was just like, well, at least they stopped being fucking terrors. And they were both like, Jeremy Allen White and Eben's character were looking at each other like, oh, thank God. We got away with this one. They thought that they were literally about to just get reamed by the uncle, and he was just cool with the fact that he drugged a bunch of wild ass kids and calmed them down. I then that basically set the tone for the entire series, because that's pretty early on in the first season too for me. I was like, well, maybe there's hope for this guy eventually. Not to say that that made it okay, what he did, but everything had been pretty serious in that series up to that point. But that was a pretty great darkly comedic moment immediately, and I'm like, and that coincidentally also simultaneously bought me into the show. So then I started giving his character a little bit more of time, And to see his character evolve just even over 2 seasons. And they kind of like run all over the map with the runtime of that show. They got episodes as short as like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and they got some that are an hour and 10, 15 minutes long. The episode that sold me on him, which is the second best episode of the entire series, in my opinion, is the Forks episode. And that's in the second season, the season that came out this year. And this is where you see his character evolve. This is where kind of almost everybody's given up on him. And Jeremy Allen White's character, his cousin, not literal cousin, but they call each other cousin because they grew up together and so close together in family and everything.
Fucking Chicago.
In Chicago.
With the Chicago Bears,
Go Bears. He has always seen something in him still yet. So that's, I guess, why he kept him along. And so he invests in him and he puts him into these situations that he himself, Jeremy Allen White's character, which you find is kind of traditional with a lot of the people that he invests in the show. He puts some of these people through the same path that he traveled to gain success, like personal success. And whenever he sets Cousin Richie, which is Eben's character, on this course, he just fucking kills it. Like, he starts to be his little shitty self that he's going to fuck everything up and be a saboteur initially. And just something snaps in him. And a lot of it's to do with, trying to prove himself to his ex and, be something for his daughter and all that, which are great motivators, mind you. And the fact that something clicks that, he also realizes that his cousin believes in him. And he didn't want to disappoint him. And so he just fucking shines in that. He all of a sudden he finds his stride. He finds his strong suits. His ability to actually be good with customer service and things like that. So just like the evolution of his character. And then like when he's singing the fucking Taylor Swift song on the car, like you can't, like that immediately was like, I love this motherfucker. I don't even like Taylor Swift, but I love this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And this is amazing. And I'm going to watch everything this guy will ever do for the rest of my life and love him and cheer for him and champion him. Like if somebody can make me flip on this guy, I'm sold, man. He killed it. Yeah. He killed it. So
yeah, I think honestly for me, I've seen him in small roles, like teeny tiny roles in the past.
Yes,
but I always recognized his face. As soon as Bear came out, and I was like, okay. And I, like you, man, I hated him, and he was always funny. Like everybody throws out their jabs, and I love how they talk to each other because this is how me and Barrett talk to each other. Like, you fucking piece of shit, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's very, his performance, and especially from him, definitely harkens back to my friendships coming from since I was 18, 19 years old. So it's something near and dear to my heart that I actually hold on to from his character.
Another wrinkle that adds to a grittiness of his character, like you don't like him, is you find out pretty early too, like he's involved in drug dealing of some sense. But then when you find out the reason why, which kind of like gives him a pass, like he was selling drugs to help keep the fucking beef open. So you're kind of like, well, not a good reason, but I see why he was doing what he was doing as well.
It's a real thing that would happen. I believe, but.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like that's what Barbarinos in Farmington did for the longest time.
Well, now you're trying to make it sound glamorous, and I'm not sure that it was. It wasn't that glamorous.
Not that glamorous. No, it wasn't glamorous.
Or my number one and your number two, and of course that is what we're talking about right now.
The Bear.
The Bear. So The Bear is a fantastic show, and we've given you some really good points. Just the performances from Eben, Jeremy Allen White, but this has got a whole slew of characters. We talked about Matty Mattinson being involved in it. I guess he's technically considered a celebrity chef nowadays, but he's written books, cookbooks. Actually, I love that he just did, I think it was 25 recipes for college students, and he was giving them out for free here recently in the last year. Yeah, so like balling on a budget type meals that you can still have a decent meal. He like gave out his cookbook for free. It was like an e-cookbook. It's just a lot of amazing things that he does. And, Brandon mentioned it earlier. Gotta echo it. The fact that he reminds us so much of our old buddy character, Kato, that we memorialized here on the podcast early on in season 1, who was a part of the original iterations of the All Things Insane podcast. Man, I can't even, ever since you mentioned that to me, I just can't not see it constantly when I see him now.
I know, bro.
Similar sense of humor, likability, friends with everybody.
Loves to cook.
Yeah, doesn't meet anybody that is a stranger. It's just, there's just so much similarities for sure. But there's other performances to love here. And to me, the all-time possibly greatest episode of any TV series ever is the Bear season 2, the Seven Fishes episode. All-star fucking cast. You've got John Mulaney, you got Sarah Paulson, you've got Jamie Lee Curtis, you've got my personal present day favorite actor, John Bernthal, Gillian Jacobs, which is an all-time, like, I guess of recent 10 years, like, TV crush of mine. You've got just such amazing performances at every turn in there. Bob Odenkirk as well. How could I overlook him? One of my favorite comedic actors of all time. Just an incredible cast, and everybody fucking kills it. It's so batshit crazy. If you've dealt with like family trauma, stress, have PTSD from family drama, this hits all of those notes. I just cannot sing the praises enough of that episode. A mutual friend of ours, Matt from back in Denver, Brandon, he hit me up whenever this show was about to start, and Matt Miller, and he said, beware of the Seven Fishes episode. And I was only 3 episodes in, and I was like, oh boy. He was like, you're going to want to take the next day off of work. And I was like, wow. I mean, I was warned, but I was not prepared, man. That was something. And goddamn, if Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't already my favorite actress of all time, she fucking sold it with that episode.
She nailed it.
She absolutely hit a grand slam out of the park. She has a later appearance in another episode briefly, but my God, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now. Like, between her and John Bernthal and Jeremy Allen White, like the interplay between them and the sister, I forget the actress's name now, but she does great as well. Oliver Platt as the uncle, he's in the mix as well. You know that there's so much more under the surface, even beyond what they even scratched in that, and that was batshit crazy enough as it is. Like, I'm sure at some point they're going to explore like what's up with the dad, like what happened to him, and that type of shit too. And I'm sure that there's like a whole nother can of worms there. And this family is full of psychos. I can relate. So so that's the reason this is my number one. Pam and I like we're pushing our bedtime, which we're old fucks anyways, and got kids, to like watch and cram in some of these episodes, dude. Like we knocked out that second season in like a week. I want to say,
in like stuffing in a turkey.
Absolutely,
shoving it in there.
Double stuffed burrito, baby. Why did this series land so much with you, Brandon? Why do you have it at number 2?
First, I want to correct myself about Kato cooking. I do want to say I misspoke in the sense that Kato, one of the first times I met and became friends with him was cooking at Domino's, and would show me different things at Domino's that he would cook up that were way more delicious than what Domino's was selling. The dude, from what I remember, liked to cook a little bit, didn't get, whatever.
Always had cooking jobs. So there's that.
Yeah, always cooking jobs. Yeah, and the fact that the dude, like, he was at Barbarino's, he was selling pizza, shit like that. Like, his comedy, though, is like Matty Matheson. For me, and this is why I was a hypocrite, is I picked The Bear, even though it's on its second season. And I have to say that the reason why I did that is because my true love for Matty Matheson. And not only that, this season felt a little more hopeful and was pointing like in the direction of, like, Cousin was coming back into things. The pastry chef was coming into his own. Like, there were so many bright moments that even though there's dark moments, that it's just, it's a very real thing. The Bear, starting off, you got Cousin fucking shooting up in the air to scare away fucking customers outside, and other individuals. Like, I think this is a very real take, and again, deeply, darkly comedic. It's got its push and pull, but I think its main root is, even though the dark despair, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that portrays it very well in this show, even though it seems like the dark, in life, always seems to like poke its ugly head out, like, constantly. It's those rare moments that you get of that hopefulness. Last point I'll make, since I was a little kid, my parents, probably regretfully so on their behalf, raised me on Anthony Bourdain, and I was watching that shit at like 10 years old. So that's something that's really stuck with me. I know it's a fad thing that people are super into cooking and super into those type of things, and that's great. That's a great hobby. But I think it's always been there in my life, and why I love to cook now. And I take joy in cooking, and I oftentimes like focus more on my cooking than that's like my role in the house, That's why it touches me. It really hits hard to home. It's got some deeply comedic moments, some deeply inspirational moments, and Seven Fishes is fucking chaotic as fuck, but it makes you feel
some kind of way.
anxiety. But it makes you feel something, and I think that's something that me and Barrett have always talked about is we want to watch something to make us feel something, not just watch something and say it's good, which is why I think we've remained friends to this day, one of the reasons. And you can't miss that kiss between your dude that you were just talking about and Manny Matheson at the Emmy that they got.
Yeah, Evan.
That was gorgeous.
Yep. They had a little on-stage kiss. Yeah, the Bears pretty much swept anything that was nominated for. So across everything, Golden Globes, Emmys, Critics' Choice. Jeremy Allen White, the young black lady, I can't remember that actress's name. She won for her role. Maddie Mattinson got for the show itself because he's the executive producer. He accepted the award and spoke on everybody's behalf. Like they just killed. I will always watch The Bear. I don't know how it'll ever be a bad show. It's really a wholesome show whenever you look down to the bones of it.
It's a real wholesome show, not Touched by an Angel wholesome show.
Right.
It's
more like An Angel Touched Me.
Wholesome. An angel touched me around my butthole. And around my butthole, because if it gets too in there, I'm not.
Then it's a little different, yeah.
Daddy doesn't want to play.
We went to a different degree of assault. Yeah. So we're at the magic moment, Brandon. Are you ready to reveal to our audience what might be Knob Nard's number one
you can
TV
never
show?
Say that right. It's literally my name backwards.
I know it is. Nod.
Okay.
Narbs.
Narbs. Yeah.
Yes.
I always said Nod Nards. I don't know if
I don't say Nards.
Knob Nards.
No.
I don't know. It kind of sounds like that.
I do not say Nards.
Don't cut this out. Prove it to Barrett. Anyways, for me, this show came out of nowhere. Like I think me and Liz are sitting on the bed. We didn't have anything to watch. I'm like, man, I have been seeing this shit. And I'm hesitant to start things on Netflix because I'm like, I don't want to give these motherfuckers any more money. I had actually canceled my subscription, and my son randomly resubscribed us to Netflix out of nowhere. Like I came in here, and he's watching Netflix after I was sleeping, and he woke up in the middle of the night. He's like, "Hey, Daddy, hey, watch." He's got fucking Blippi. Fucking Christ. So he had it back. I was like, okay, let's watch this. Blue-eyed motherfucking samurai. Talk about a splatter film. It is, yes, it is definitely in the trope of a revenge story. Where that revenge story goes is a much deeper and darker area. I thought that this was going to be PG-13 or just a nod at certain things and maybe like innuendo in there. This is full blown. We're going ham. We are fucking destroying motherfuckers. Like we're talking about. This is the most entertaining TV series that I've seen in a while, in the sense that it is everything that it says it's going to be. There's nudity. There's fucking. There's drugs. There's betrayal. There's blood and guts. There's killer fucking kills. Like deeply inventive, all done in a beautiful art style. It's all animation. Every single time I talk to a new person, I'm like, have you seen Blue-Eyed Samurai? It is a motherfucking punch to the gut. It is so hardcore. Like, I could listen to fucking Spy while I'm watching this show. It's got its comedic moments. There's one dude in there that does not have any hands, and he's a cook. There's so many awesome things to the show, and it makes me feel like I'm in a video game. It is so good, and the lore is all there. And they take it's very much a race-driven show, where Japan has closed off its borders and will not allow anything that is colonial to be brought in there, being white. Nothing can enter, nothing can exit. There's a lot of criminal bosses in there that are actually higher up in the government. You'll find characters that are briefly brought in, like certain guns and certain things that are part of the culture, and they're trying to overthrow the government. It is so good, and it got renewed for a second season. I am so fucking ready for the second season because the main chick, blue-eyed samurai, how she hides her fucking blue eyes is because she's an interracial child. Is that one of these colonial men have raped her mother, and now she's considered a monster to the Japanese people because she has blue eyes, the eyes of a devil. It's deeply traumatic for this character because it's considered like a blasphemy that these people are not to be fucking talked to, nothing. So she conceals those with yellow eye lenses that she covers over her eyes. It's very much harkening to a lot of anime style things and a lot of the curvature of the eyes and things like that. But it is the story of how she becomes what she is. As she's been through so much shit, been treated like shit. Her mom was raped to birth her. As a kid, she's treated like shit. If you have not watched Blue Eyed Samurai, it is a show that what I thought of the first John Wick, but the story is like such a D&D story, and in a very graphic way. That takes the cake for me. I don't think that I'll ever shy away from a season of this. It has a lot of big name actors in it.
Okay, so Misu is the chick who's getting ready to be in the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Donald Glover, which I never gave a shit about Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but I actually watched the trailer for this they just put out. It's going to be a Prime original. It actually looks really good. So I might give that a check. Yeah. And
George Takei's in it.
Kenneth Branagh is in it as well, right? The English actor.
Brenna Song, who is the princess.
Now that's Macaulay Culkin's partner. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Or partner. I mean, endless amounts of talent in this show. The voice acting is perfect. You begin to hate characters because of their decisions, but then those characters become strong. And it's female-driven, strong characters that I fucking love.
Yeah, I looked some.
And I'm not used to seeing them.
I think the animation on this, just from some of the stills that I've seen, almost kind of reminds me of like that MTV Spider-Man series that they put out, just kind of like with some of the shadows and stuff. Which I always loved that style of animation. Yeah, it was like a hybrid of 2D, 3D animation. I always enjoyed that, so this is right up my alley, to be honest with you.
Talk about gory, man. There's like, there is private mutilation. There's like,
damn,
straight down the tummy. There's some body horror stuff in this. This girl is a badass, and she shows it, and it doesn't make it in a sense to where she's too much of a badass. The story is there, the friendships are there. It's a wild, wild ride.
So let's end the discussion today, Brandon, talking about some of the shows that we're looking forward to here in 2024. I know we're just a few weeks in. I know the top of the list is the same show for both of us. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is True Detective. Night Country already started its first episode. I think we've both seen it now. But I know it's one that we were highly anticipating, knowing that Jodie Foster was going to be involved, one of our favorite actors, John Hawkes as well, and some newer actors and faces that I wasn't familiar with that I'm already enjoying personally. And man, we've been waiting for True Detective to return to form. When I heard Jodie Foster would be involved, I'm like, oh, that's just like the perfect idea, right? And then the director from Tigers Are Not Afraid, which I highly recommend if anybody's not seen it, a Mexican horror movie. It's got kind of like fantasy macabre elements to it. A great choice for this. I think they kind of like went back with the kind of the same thinking. I think Carrie Funk now, or I forget how you announce his last name, Fukuga maybe. Yeah, the Mexican director that did the first season of True Detective with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. I think they kind of decided to kind of go that route again. They're like, oh, let's get a up and coming, Mexican filmmaker to run this, and seems to be a great choice so far, man. I'm really loving the first episode.
I think I have to say one thing that I actually am deeply enjoying, and I don't know if you caught the second part to this, but they're diving deeply into the paranormal right off the bat.
Yes.
The supernatural. They are diving deep. First episode. Like it's everywhere. I love this idea. I think that this is what the show needs to be revitalized. And I don't know if you caught, but I believe the corpse had the beginnings of the swirl on the arm, a tattoo, but it didn't show all of it. So I cannot wait to get into the fucking circle that Matthew McConaughey's
the spiral
talks about. Can't wait for this. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be great.
There's a lot of little Easter eggs with the first episode already. The director of this loves The Thing, and they had like The Thing in the background, and it's also set like in Alaska too, and so it's like an Arctic climate. And there's an Arctic Research Center that I guess is kind of like the ground zero for this huge apparent murder. It starts off as a missing persons thing, and then the episode ends with them finding some bodies. I think on screen it only showed 3, but there's more people missing than I want to say like 5 or 6 from the research center. And there's a lot of like kind of garnish so far, I would say, like of characters that look maybe familiar. They haven't really delved too deeply with like some of the research people yet. You're going to get backstory and all that stuff, but they're kind of doing that perfect meld that the first season did already, and that is the first season just kind of hinted at constantly the paranormal. They never went full bore into it. At the last episode, you were getting the feelings that they were going to, but it became a little bit more, realistic, if you will. This, they're, like you said, leaning right into the paranormal bluntly, immediately. Certainly as how these bodies are found too, there's a paranormal element to it as well. Some afterlife directions. So I don't think if you've seen Tigers Are Not Afraid, nothing that you see in this will surprise you. There's a lot of similar things happening with regards of how it touches on to the macabre and the paranormal.
I was going to ask about this. I believe I watched that movie, but is there ever at any point a stuffed tiger in that?
Yes.
So there's stuffed tigers on the bedroom or on a little futon.
Yeah.
Sitting in the back of the little girl's room or the guy's room.
Yes.
That was sitting on there, and I was like, that's definitely a nod to that. But
right. Well, and then they kind of use the polar bear in a similar way in the episode too. So because like Jodie Foster's character finds the polar bear on the floor, and then later the polar bear is like a real thing. The polar bear is a real thing that the I guess highway patrol worker, I forget what the character's name is. She's a Inuit, I guess, like indigenous to Canada, Alaska area, but she actually sees a polar bear with the same eye scar in the street. It stopped, like she has to slam her vehicle almost simultaneously, or at least the way they cut it in the episode. So again, it's kind of marrying some of those ideas and things that are visited not only in the first season, but back to Tigers Are Not Afraid, which I thought was a very overlooked movie. The year that it came out was one of my favorites that came out. I want to say that was like 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, 2018, 2019. I can't remember.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Mm-hmm. That was a Shudder exclusive at the time, I want to say. I'm not sure like where people can get it now, but yeah, if you get a chance to check that movie out and you like what you saw of the first episode of this new season of True Detective, and Jodie Foster would be in that conversation, top 10, top 5, maybe even top 4, 3 favorite actresses of all time for me. It's not that she's done a lot of things. I mean, she has done a lot of things, but certainly her career has scaled off in the last 10 to 15 years, but by choice. She could do whatever the hell she wanted, and that is what she's doing, is whatever the hell she wants. She doesn't have to take on all these roles, but you're talking about somebody that started her career back with like Taxi Driver,
strong,
real fucking strong. And I think I just read today that she confirmed that she was originally asked to be Princess Leia in the Star Wars franchise. She turned it down. She wasn't interested. So that's crazy to think that could have been her as well.
Yeah, but I've never seen her in a not serious dark role. Like even Contact has darkness to it.
Well, yeah, it's some of my favorite. Like again, let's talk about some of the movies that she's done. So we said Taxi Driver, Silence of the Lambs, Contact, Panic Room. I mean, come on, man.
Which I just rewatched, and it still holds up.
It's great.
Panic Room is a phenomenal film. It really is. Minus that fucking cult leader that's in there, but even then, He was great at that time. Fuck that
Cornrow
piece of
Jared
shit.
Leto.
Yeah. Did you well, and Forrest Whitaker, my God, what a fucking powerhouse.
Oh yeah.
But did you see that Jared Leto was off to him by himself on that fucking at the table at the Emmys, and they looked into it, and it's because certain people that were there with him, and then the Michelin star chef feeds everybody throughout the whole Emmys, and he comes up to their table, and Jared Leto's like, "I'm not going to try your food. I think it's going to be garbage." And he goes, "Well, I'm sorry that you feel like that, but he's like, well, I've been to other places and it's always garbage. It doesn't taste good." And the guy's like, "Well, just try it and see if you like it." And then he's like, "That's why I always bring these power bars." And he holds up this power bar and starts eating it. And then everybody at that table fucking left the motherfucker.
Wow.
And he's wearing his fucking shades and his fucking Jesus hair and all that. And
that's unfortunate, man.
Fuck you, bro. You fucking cunt.
Pretentious. Such a pretentious fellow. It sucks because he does have some talent, but that all goes to the wayside with shit like that for sure, right?
Don't care. Fuck him.
So I know like some other series that are coming out this year, though, that I know that we probably forgot to even consider would be like the Fallout series. So we've already seen some teasers for that comes out in March. I know that's something that we're both really excited about. It has the potential to be another one of those Grand Slam game adaptations. If they do it right, it already looks great.
It looks beautiful. I will say that whenever I was 14, 15 years old, it's probably like 13, 14, I had gotten my own computer in my room. They gave me the old computer. My dad took the new one, obviously. And there was only one game that I really wanted to play for it. It was called Fallout. And I saw it in game magazines. It was Fallout 1 and 2. And I came around the era that it was 2 was just came out. And it was like your character, a little like 2-inch dude or 1-inch dude, and you could click in a place. It was a point and click thing, and then talk to people. And that was whenever I experienced one of my first hard-ons for a video game, because there's a part in there where you can talk to a prostitute and sleep with her. And this was before I ever got my hands on PlayStation, before Grand Theft Auto and anything else. And I was like, you can sleep with this dude's wife who also runs the brothel. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my sexual awakening. But seriously, like, those games are like near and dear to me because I played them repeatedly, just like I've played Last of Us repeatedly later on in my life. So I hope that they do it justice. I hope they can do the same thing that The Last of Us did. We'll just have to see. It's a gorgeous looking show for sure.
Yeah, we knocked it out of the park, and we'll just kind of wrap things up by just addressing one other elephant in the room, and that is Josh Welch has not been with us on several broadcasts here as of recent. And just to let the folks know in our audience that are looking for some sort of explanation, because I've had some questions asked of me off air by some listeners and things of that ilk, Josh is going to be taking in a definite hiatus for some mental health reasons, and so we fully support him getting himself right and taking a little bit more Josh Welch time. So, at the end of the day, we all got to do what's right for us, and, some more power to him. He's been friends with us for 20 years, and so that's not going to change. It's just, people got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Take care of yourself. Well, no, not longer than that. I feel like I'm 47. Yeah, man, take care of yourself, and I'm sure everybody wants or wishes you well from listeners that we have, like the 6 of them. I think Mondo's one of those. Doug doesn't definitely listen to those. He's too big.
No, yeah, Doug's too popular, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Wicker Man getting all those awards.
Yeah, Wicker Man with all the bees. He's got to deal with all those bees constantly.
Especially the anal bees.
Anal bees are terrifying.
Yeah.
Anal bees in an anal bead form would be exciting.
Could be.
And
especially if a little honey, make them honey bees.
Detrimental. Maybe. Yeah, maybe a little.
Get in your honey hole.
Maybe a little bear.
The bear.
Lick my honey. Yeah, that guy.
I want to thank Brandon for joining me and tackling this. This is our last broadcast of season 2. We'll see you guys here in a couple weeks. So for this week, I am Barrett at Barry Insane on Instagram and Twitter. Be sure to follow Edaws in at Edaws_in. You can follow Narb's Closet and all the events that they have going on there. I wanted to make sure I
From now
enunciated
on,
that
want
for
you to
Brandon.
pronounce it that way. Yeah, and also, don't forget, if you want us to be sponsored by Cake, write in.
Yes.
To Cake. Anytime, if you just look up Cake Lube.
Yes.
And I guarantee you can find it.
You have it right under your desk. Why don't you just show the folks at home just so there's no confusion, if you don't mind.
1 second.
They're not paying us yet, folks, but please help us here because we all need a little lube in our life. And so here, Kate.
It's called So Low.
So Low. Oh my goodness. You'll get real low with that.
Yeah, so enjoy that. Truly enjoy it. And hit them up at their contact and say you believe that ATI Podcast should be sponsored by Cake.
We'll put their email in the show notes on the on-demand version so you guys can hit them up for us. All right?
Yeah, we'll hit them up on... Well, actually, we should tag them on Instagram.
Absolutely. And we can do that as well. So be sure to follow the ATI Podcast on Instagram, where we're most active. We're across all social media channels, but that handle on Instagram is at the ATI Podcast. That's where we're most up to date. And for this week, good night and good luck. Stay safe out there, folks. Hello, everybody. This is Barrett Lewis from the ATI Podcast, here with an exciting announcement about our Season 3 launch. We're going to be launching Season 3 of the ATI Podcast in February of 2024. Our first guest helping us to achieve this task is going to be See You Next Tuesday. They're coming back to the program. The Brian Legends have a new album coming out this year, and we're going to sit down and discuss the new album on Good Fight Music. After that, we're going to have a rising St. Louis hardcore band, Squint, from Sunday Drive Records. Another heavy band in the St. Louis music scene, making some waves, Sawed Off, will be joining the podcast in late February as well. Rusty Leonard, Mineral Area music legend from Last Flight Home, Pennies for Allah, Quarterback Tom, his own solo work, will be joining the podcast in March. Maul, Fargo, North Dakota metal band, one of the biggest rising artists in the heavy music scene right now. We're going to have Garrett, the lead singer of Maul, on the program, talking about all their amazing work and what the future has in store for Maul as well. Lastly, we're pleased to announce that we're going to have Nerver from Kansas City on the program, and we're going to be talking about all the waves that they're making in the heavy music scene. We're excited to bring you this slate of Season 3 guests to the ATI Podcast. We look forward to your all's enjoyment of our conversations with these guests. As always, please help us in bringing a spotlight to their talents. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow our podcast, the ATI Podcast, across all social media platforms, as well as all traditional podcasting platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube, where you can see our video chats with every featured artist throughout the show's history. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and comment, interact with the show. As always, we appreciate your support of the ATI Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you in February of 2024 for our Season 3 launch. Stay safe out there. Hey there, this is Barrett from the ATI Podcast, here to talk about what we have going on the ATI Podcast Network. First, we'll start with Waxing On with R&J. The format of Waxing On with R&J is audible selections made exclusively by our hosts and brothers, Ridge Jackson and Jake Jackson. Waxing On with R&J is sure to tickle your inner eardrums with some of the most vile tones you've ever encountered, and conversely, ear candy with pop melodies, focusing on spotlighting underground and rising artists. Waxing On with R&J is another outlet of the ATI Podcast community to bring awareness to many musicians' craft. Also found on the ATI Podcast Network, Nod Narb's Closet, hosted by Brandon Stewart of Edaws END. Nod Narb's Closet is a wing of the ATI Podcast programming that delves into the world of role-play games, miniature painting, diorama making, occasional pro wrestling match watch-alongs, providing commentary with a dash of jocularity and satire, and much, much more. Of course, leading the pack is the ATI Podcast. On the ATI Podcast, we episodically invite guests onto our show to spotlight their talents, whether that's musicians,
filmmakers, artists, actors, businesses, even athletes. Nothing is off the table. The focus of the ATI Podcast and its collective creative arms, whether that's waxing on with R&J or Nard's Closet, is to bring awareness and focus to people's talents. Be sure to follow us across all traditional podcasting platforms, and for the full experience, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search the ATI Podcast. Stay safe out there.